Well, as we've seen theaters grappling with reopening amidst the coronavirus pandemic, studios have had to plan around whether or not they want to roll their big productions out on streaming platforms or still wait out when theaters could come back online. And that is the focus of today's Fame and Fortune segment here with our own Alexandra Canal. And Ali, when we look at it, it's been a while, but what's Disney thinking? I mean, Mulan's coming down the chute. What are they going to do?
A lot is happening with Disney right now, but you're right. Let's start with Mulan, because just a month ago, Disney was sitting pretty, right? Like Mulan was about to debut on July 24th. A week ahead of that release would be the release of Christopher Nolan's Tenet. So Disney execs would have a really good pulse on movie theater attendance during that time. Hopefully people would have felt more comfortable going to the theater. The curve would be a little more flattened. But fast forward a month later, and we're living in a very different reality. Coronavirus cases have spiked in certain U.S. states such as Texas, Arizona, and Florida. And in addition to that, Warner Brothers further delayed the release of Tenet not once, but now twice. The film will debut in theaters August 12th, and that leaves Mulan as the first major blockbuster to return to theaters post-pandemic. And that is pretty risky. According to the Wall Street Journal, Disney execs are now reportedly mulling further delaying that movie's release date. I would not be surprised at all if that were to happen. Although I will say that if it does happen, it is going to have a major impact on the entire box office ecosystem. AMC, for example, has been very adamant in the fact that they want to reopen theaters by July 15th. But if there is no Mulan, if there is no Tenet, there will be no blockbuster to really anchor that reopening plan, and no reason for people to leave their couches and go to the theater. That could be catastrophic for theaters that have suffered greatly within this pandemic. And besides just the movie drama, Disney also found itself in some hot water this week over the reopening of one of its California theme parks. So Disney had originally scheduled the reopening of Disneyland in Anaheim, California on July 17th, but that was quickly met with intense backlash from union workers who said they would not feel comfortable going back to work during that time. In addition to that, the California government said they would not be issuing any guidance on theme park reopenings until at least July 4th. So both of those instances pushing Disney to postpone that reopening plan. Although I do want to mention that Disney World in Orlando, Florida is still on track for a July 11th reopening date, although many people expect that will also be postponed due to the spike in coronavirus cases in that state. But keep in mind, theme parks are a very large portion of Disney's bottom line, and the longer that they are shut down, the more they will be bleeding money for the company. And then finally, as if we didn't have enough Disney news this week, the company announced yesterday that they are going to be completely overhauling their Splash Mountain ride over its ties to the film Song of the South. Now, this film has largely been considered incredibly racist, controversial. Now, when you go through the ride, instead of seeing characters and scenes from that movie, you will see scenes from the animated film Princess and the Frog, which does feature an African-American female protagonist. But this is just another example of how companies are analyzing every aspect of their business, trying to determine what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, as the nation continues to grapple with the killing of George Floyd. But clearly a lot happening with Disney right now, still more to be determined. And a lot of this hinges on the coronavirus, whether or not we see cases continue to balloon, perhaps retract, but certainly right now the trend doesn't look too good.
And Disney not the only company there grappling with that shift in sentiment over these old antebellum South movies. I know HBO Max also pulled Gone with the Wind before reversing course and putting it up. I mean, it's interesting to see all these different companies taking different tracks here when we think about dealing with that issue. What was the stance for HBO Max as they did the same?
Right. So it's been a little over 2 weeks since HBO Max first pulled Gone with the Wind off of its platform. It is now back, but with a disclaimer. So before you can even start watching the movie, you also have to watch a video by TCM host and University of Chicago professor Jacqueline Stewart, who breaks down some of the historical context. In addition to that video, you also have 2 supplemental clips, one that features a panel discussion over the film's controversial roots, and another that dives deeper into the character of Mammy, along with the actress who played her, Hattie McDaniel. Now, there was some speculation about whether or not the film would receive any editing treatment. HBO Max did immediately shoot that down, saying in doing so would be to erase a prejudice that existed during that time. Jacqueline Stewart echoed very similar sentiments during her introductory video as well, saying it's important to watch these films in their original form under the belief system that you currently have and see how they make you feel.
Yeah, no, very interesting take on that front, as again, we see pressure from a lot of people to take down old Confederate statues here. Films being, at least for the time being, looked at a bit differently. But Alexandra, Canal, appreciate you bringing us that in today's Fame and Fortune segment.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.